What is up, YouTube? Welcome to this Moralis video. Hopefully you're all feeling very festive and ready for this Christmas season. Today we got a little Christmas present for you, a Rarity ranker building tutorial. If you like this sort of content, remember to leave a subscribe and like to this video. It'll allow you to be the first to be notified when Moralis puts out new free content for you to become a better Web3 developer. Make sure you're able to connect your dapps with the blockchain. But without further ado, let's just get straight into this. Today we're building a Rarity ranker tool for generatively produced NFT artwork collections. So here we have one of the most famous, if not most favorite collections, the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And it's ranked from the most rare NFT and in descending order to the less rare NFTs. You can load some more NFTs over here. And when you find a NFT you're interested in, say this one with the tie-dye, we get an overview of this NFT. All the traits that this NFT has. So as a hat, it has the seaman's hat. As clothes, has the tie-dye shirt. And we also get the number of NFTs within this whole collection of 10,000 items. How many NFTs possess these traits? So the seaman's hat is possessed by 420 NFTs. And using this, we can create a rarity score for each of these traits. And then combining all of them, we get a total rarity score, which then places this NFT as the 9th most rare NFT in the complete collection. Same thing, we can search for a specific token if we own it or we just want to know its rarity. So say 176 over here, search for that. We get this NFT very instantly. We see that it's ranked within the middle of the collection, number 5,700th. And same thing, we see what traits this NFT possesses and how its rarity is calculated using these traits. As I said, this works for any generatively produced NFT art collection, as long as their metadata follows the best practices for storing trait types. So for example, this Pepsi mic drop that just launched this December, we get the same thing. We get all the most rare NFTs and in descending order, and automatically it loaded the NFT number 176 for us, which is ranked 16th in the whole collection based on its traits. So if you're interested in how to build something like this, watch along and we'll build this very simply using Moralis. So before we jump headfirst into coding, let's just have a little bit of an overview of what this video consists of. First, we'll want to do a little bit of theory of how NFT rarity is calculated. There's numerous different ways, but we'll look at the most basic ways and then you can modify it if you wish afterwards. Then we'll jump into actually creating that rarity generator tool using Moralis Web3 API, how we can get all the tokens, then using our theory of how NFT rarity is calculated, getting a rarity score for each of these NFTs, and then storing this whole collection in our Moralis database, for example. And then lastly, we'll look at the user interface that you saw at the start of the video, and it'll also be linked in the description below if you want to have a play around with it. But in essence, for our little theory lesson, let's just use the Bored Ape Yacht Club as our sample collection. As I said, it has 10,000 different items. And all these items are randomly generated based on 7 different traits. So you have the hat, the mouth, the fur, the clothes, etc. And within these trait types, you can have different sort of attributes. So as the hat, it can have a halo or a cap or a party hat or a helmet. And each of these are present within the collection a different amount of times, which will allow us to calculate how rare that trait is, and combining all of them will allow us to calculate the total rarity of the NFT. So let's just take one of the NFTs within this collection as our sample, Bored Ape Yacht Club number 3284. Here you see a picture of it. It has 5 of the total 7 traits any Bored Ape Yacht Club could have. As the eyes, it has the robot eyes. Its background is yellow. Fur is cream. Mouth is bored, unshaven, with a dagger. And clothes, it has the rainbow suspenders. You notice it doesn't have a hat and doesn't have an earring. Now, how we start calculating the rarity of each of these traits is using the rarity percentage. Simply put, it's the number of items within the whole collection that have a specific trait, like, for example, robot eyes with a Bored Ape Yacht Club number 3284, divided by all of the NFTs within that collection. So it'd be 10,000 in this case. Unfortunately, this is a linear representation because there's 7 total traits, and for each trait, if it has one rare trait, that will get lost in the muffle of all the other traits having a not so unique trait. So we can improve this by actually taking a rarity score. So taking our rarity percentage and doing 1 over this rarity percentage, which will give us a inversely proportional relationship between the rarity of any trait and the rarity percentage. So as you see in this graph, a very rare property will get a very high rarity score compared to a rarity percentage that is very common will get a very low rarity score. So we put more weight on the traits that are actually rare. Now, looking at an example for the Bored Ape Yacht Club 3284, his eyes are robot, and 350 apes in this collection possess the robot eyes. We divide that by the complete collection size. That gives us a rarity percentage of 3.5. And now calculating the rarity score, we get 28.6. So now we have the simple rarity calculation for one trait, and we can combine this with all the other traits as well. So for the fur, we get 15.7. The yellow background, we get 7.8. Rainbow suspenders seems to be a very unique trait, giving us a very high rarity score. And the bored unshaven dagger mouth, even more rare, gives us a very high rarity score. We can even do this for the number of traits this NFT has. So within the collection, we see that very commonly these NFTs have only 5 of the 7 traits, because this gives us a very low rarity score. And also, no hat is a very common NFT trait, and no earring as well. This giving us the total rarity score of 493. So it is as simple as this. We just calculate the rarity percentage, which then allows us to calculate the rarity score, and then combining this for all the different traits, we get the rarity score, and then we can start ranking. When we do the same procedure for every single NFT, we get a list of the most rare to the least rare NFTs. So now that we have a basic understanding of how to calculate rarity, we can move on to the coding bit. And as always, when working with a Moralis project, we'll find ourselves in the Moralis admin dashboard and create a new server. So we choose mainnet over here, Rarity generator, let's call it Rarity generator. Select the region closest to us and do ETH mainnet, as we'll work on Ethereum NFTs for this project, but it'll work for any chain you wish to choose. Okay, with this Rarity generator server created, we get our server URL and application ID we'll need when interacting with Moralis. So we can go ahead and open our IDE. I have Visual Studio over here, and I've created a folder called Rarity Generator, where we can create our JS file, which will actually generate our tool. We'll just call it main.js. And let's just initialize some things. So we'll call npm init. Walk through these. Yep. So that'll create us a package.json. And then we'll also want to install Moralis. npm install Moralis. That should do that for us. So we'll wait for that to go through. Okay, we've added Moralis to our project, and now in our file, we'll have to call const Moralis equals require, and we'll bring in Moralis node so we can use everything we have in Moralis in our script. Then, of course, we'll want to initialize Moralis. So we get the server URL and app ID and run Moralis start. Let's get the server URL and app ID from over here, server URL, and chuck that in over there. And same thing for app ID. Get that from there and put it in here. Now for our Rarity generator to know which NFT collection to search for, we'll provide the const collection address. And I've already got on the clipboard the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection address, and we can also give a name for us to be easier to figure out which collection we're working with. We'll just call it Bored Ape Yacht Club. So now our script knows what collection we are curious with, and then we can create a function to start looking at how to generate rarity. And we'll start putting our stuff in here, and then we'll have to call it at the end, generate rarity. And initially, let's figure out what we want to get in our generate rarity function. First of all, we'll of course need all our tokens. And of course, Moralis has the Web3 API get all token IDs, which can do that for us. So we can call that first of all. And this takes as parameters, at least at the minimum, an address, because it automatically assumes the chain to be ETH, where the Bored Ape Yacht Club is. And we actually have the collection address stored, so we can just put that in here. Now we can have a quick look at what this actually gives us by calling console.log NFTs and running node main.js. Of course, we need to save our file and then run node main.js. And look at that. It gives us a whole plethora of tokens. And if we look at the data we get, we see that in the metadata we have as attributes, we can see the trait type of the NFT, earring, and the value of the earring is a silver hoop. Same thing for mouth, bored cigarette, background, yellow. So we have all the traits that we need to start the calculation for rarity. But one thing we need to do before, the Moralis Web3 API get all token IDs request limits you to a page size of 500. So you only have the first 500 NFTs this API request gives back. So we'll have to loop around to get the whole NFT collection into your working environment. Now, how we do that is we can see how many actually NFTs there are in the collection, which is stored in NFTs.total. Then we can get the page size that the request actually is returning us with the same thing. Oops. Let's get that from over there. NFTs page underscore size. And now, if I just do a console log just to show you what this gives us, just as a demonstration, now when we run node main.js again, we see that we actually do have 10,000 NFTs, but we're only getting 500 back. So we'll have to make a loop that offsets this request by 500 each iteration until we get the total amount of NFTs in the collection. Of course, we can store the NFTs given by this first request in an array for us. So let all NFTs equal NFTs dot result, which stores the array of all these NFTs. And then we just make, I'll have to be inside the function. Here we can make that for loop. Our page, so we let I equal our page size, which is 500. And as long as I is less than the total number of NFTs in the collection, we iterate by another page size. And then we call this Moralis Web3 API get all tokens ID and offset by that page size, so 500. So for the first time, we'll look at the first 500 NFTs given by the request. Then we'll look at the next 500 to 1,000 NFTs given, and then the 1,000 to 1,500, and so on and so forth. But because currently we are limiting the request to this API, you'll have to add a timer here as well. So await a timer, and 6 seconds should be enough. And we'll just have to create that timer function over here. So this just makes us sure that every time we call this get all token IDs, we don't over abuse the API and call it too many times. So we wait 6 seconds in between each call to make sure that we get every single one. Right, now we're starting to be in business, but we have all these NFTs, and it's an array of 10,000 of these objects, which has all the token address, token ID, but we don't need all of that to calculate the rarity. All we really need is this metadata key with the attributes array, because that will have all the attributes we need to calculate the rarity based on what proportion of these attributes are present in the whole collection. So let's just see if we do that by creating a metadata array, which just maps through all the NFTs and JSON parses the metadata and gets the attributes array from the metadata. And we can actually just see what that looks like if we do a console log, get the metadata, and let's just look at the first object. We don't need to look at the whole array, and save that. If we go over here and do a node main.js, and boom, look at that. We get this nice little array of all the trait types this first NFT in the collection has. Seems like it has 6 traits, missing only the earring trait, and we get the value of each of these traits. And of course, we only got the first element, so there'll be 10,000 of these. That's also why this actually took quite long. I had to cut the film to make sure we don't actually have to run through every single NFT each time we run an example. Let's just comment this bit out for the time being, and we'll comment it back in when we actually get the whole collection's rankings. But for now, it'll be enough to just have the first 500. But with this metadata, now we can start looping through every single NFT and tallying up how many NFTs have these different traits. And how we do that is pretty simple. We just make a couple of for loops. Let's start. To get us started, let's make a tally object, which we can then increment when we want to count how many traits are present. So we'll call it trait count, and we'll make it an object. All right. And now create that for loop. So we have this big array of metadata, and we can just call let j equal 0, and j is less than metadata length. And then we just increment 1 every time we go through. So first thing in this loop we can do is get all the trait types this one NFT has. So this will have clothes, hat, mouth, eyes. And how we do that is just map through the nth element or the jth element of the metadata and get the trait type. And we can do the same thing for the trait values. Paste that over there. So now we have the NFT traits and NFT values for one single NFT within this loop. Now, next thing we want to do is we can calculate how many traits this NFT has, as that will be one of the things that we need to calculate rarity. And now all we want to do is populate this object in the tally with how many NFTs in the collection have different amounts of traits. So in the tally trait count key, if there is a key of number of traits, so in this case there would be 6 traits, we increment it by another one. But else, if, for example, in this case where we're going through the first element, there won't be any element with 6 traits, we initiate the tally with 1. And as this loops through, we'll get a nice little object here giving us an indication of how many NFTs have the different set of number of traits. We can do a little test of this by then doing a console log of tally and see what this gives us. So if we just save that and do node main.js and look at this, because we only went through 500 NFTs, we commented out the whole loop to get all the 10,000. We see that most occurring number of trait counts is 6 with 268, with only 4 of the 7 traits. We only have 14 out of the 500, and then 5 and 7 are a bit more likely. Now knowing how many NFTs in the collection have how many traits, we can go one level deeper and count how many NFTs have a specific trait type. And how we do that is a tad bit more complicated, but still very, very simple. So as you remember, we're looping through the different NFT traits. So we have this array of all the NFT traits within this for loop. And if we have another for loop within this, we can loop through each NFT's trait type array each time, and then add this to a tally over here. So we'll create a new key in the tally object consisting of all the trait types, and then increment the occurrences of each trait type doing that. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but let's see what that looks like when we now run the same function. Cool, so we ran the same script again, and now we have, in addition to trait count, we have how many times did clothes occur, 386. How many times did hat occur, 398. Earring only occurred 140 times, but all the other traits occurred in every single NFT. Now, one more step deeper, we'll want to know how many times each one of the different types of attributes within a trait type occur. So we'll have to increment them within the objects inside of the clothes, hat, mouth, etc. So let's see how we do that. So in essence, it's the exact same thing as tallying all the NFT trait types, but because we get NFT values as well, we just do inside the for loop, we get let's make this neat so it's easy to see. So rather than getting the trait, we get the current value to be the NFT's value, not the trait type, because this gives us the trait type, so clothes, and then the value gives us, say, for clothes, Vietnam jacket. And now in this clothes key in the object, if we actually have the current value, so if we have the Vietnam jacket, we'll just increment it by 1. And if we don't have in the current clothes object in Vietnam jacket, we'll create a tally or initiate it by 1. So that is how we do it. And now running node main.js. And look at how beautiful that is. So in our tally object, we have an earring object, which occurs 140 times. And within earrings, there are silver studs that occur 41 times, gold studs that appear 21 times, silver hoops which appear 43 times, and so on and so forth. So now we basically just looped around every single NFT within the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection, and we know how often they occur. And if you remember, if you go back to the start of the video, how we calculate rarity, we just need to know how many NFTs there are in the collection and how often a specific trait occurs. And that way we can count rarity. So now, next up is just calculating the rarity scores, tallying them up, and ranking every NFT in order. And then we're completed. Rightio, now with the tally object completely populated, with all the rarity proportions we need, we can create another for loop again. I know there's a lot of for loops, bear with me. But we can take the same metadata for loop we did already, because we're wanting to add to each element in the metadata, which is actually a single NFT, rarity scores for the different trait types. So starting off again, we'll want to keep tallies of which NFT we are currently working with. So we'll get the current metadata. And now that we have an NFT with a specific amount of trait types, we loop through each trait type. So we get this NFT's length, and for each of them, we look in the tally for the current NFT's trait type. So if we're looking at the earring trait type for the current NFT, we get the value of what it is. So if the NFT has a silver stud, it'll give us a 41. And then we divide by the total number, which we got at the very start of the collection. So we'll get 41 divided by 1,000. And then we do the 1 divided by that, as we talked about at the start of the video, giving us a rarity score for that specific trait. And now we just add that rarity score to the specific trait that it corresponds to. It's a bit of a mouthful, but let's see if we actually console log. I think we have the metadata still up here. Do we? Oh yeah, we have it over here. So if we copy that and put it down here, now it should look a bit different. We don't need to console log the tally anymore. And now if we do our node main.js, look at that. Now for the first NFT in the collection, we see that the trait type is hat, the type of the hat is a fox hat, and the rarity score it gets for a fox hat is 1,428. Of course, these numbers at the moment will still be off because we're dividing by the total number, which is 10,000, and we only have 500 NFTs we've looped through. But when we do this at the end, it'll give us the correct numbers. So now we basically have the rarity scores for each trait, and we can loop through all the metadata to get this. But this isn't enough because now we are only getting the rarity score for the traits available for this NFT. But what about the rarity score for having a specific amount of traits, and the rarity score for the traits that are not present with this NFT? So let's add those. So the rarity score for having a specific amount of traits will be the same as this. So we can, currently we're outside the for loop, rarity score num traits, but we'll find in the tally object, we have trait counts, and then we need to figure out how many traits the current NFT has. So it's an object, current, and we do object.keys and put current inside there. So that will give us all the keys within the current object, and then we just get the length of that. And that should give us the rarity score based on how many traits this NFT has. And now pushing that into our current NFT object. So we add as the trait type trait count, because that is what this trait refers to. As the value will be how many traits it has. So in this case, I think it would be 7. And then the rarity score we just calculated, we pushed that in there as well. Guess this could, what am I doing? Put that over there. Looks nice. And save that. Run this just to make sure we did everything right. And look at that. We get the same things. We get the trait type clothes, mouth, eyes, but at the end we have a trait count of value 6. So this NFT has 6 traits, and that gives us a rarity score as well. How cool is that? So finally, for this NFT, it would be finding out, I think it doesn't have the earring trait type, so what the rarity score for not having an earring is. So we'll have to add that at the end. Okay, for this bit where we have to find if some of the traits are not actually present, we'll have to, outside of the for loop, figure out in our tally object, see what the collection attributes actually are. And then when we look at our current NFT, its metadata, we can have a look that if the current NFT's metadata's length is less than the collection's metadata's length, we are missing a trait, and we have to account for that and calculate the rarity for missing that trait. So for our current NFT, we have to figure out the NFT attributes. So if we map through all the trait types, we get which trait types are present. And then we can do a little filter function to figure out which NFTs are actually absent from the actual collection's attributes. In this case, like I said, it should be the earring. And now that we have that in check, each of the attributes we're missing, we can do absent for each, get the rarity score of null. So getting all the NFTs in the collection, 100, minus the type of NFT we are missing and the occurrences of that, will get the number of NFTs which actually do not have that property, and then divided by the total number, we'll get the probability of getting an NFT which doesn't have a specific trait, and then get the rarity score for that. And same thing, we add that to the NFTs array, giving the trait type to be the type of the attribute that is missing. A value will be null because they don't have that attribute, and then the rarity score null, which we calculate over here. And now, same thing if we run our node main.js. Look at this. Now in our NFT, we've added the trait type earring with a value null because this NFT does not possess this trait type, and a rarity score because very many NFTs do not have the earring. You get a very small rarity score, but still it boosts your rarity score a tiny bit. So it's good that we have the rarity score for each trait type, but we need to combine them to be able to get the total rarity score for a single NFT to then be able to rank all our NFTs within the collection. So let's keep an eye on the total rarity. So let's create a variable here called let total rarity equal, it starts off at 0, and then we can add over here. So total rarity plus equals rarity score, and then let's just copy that. Okay, and every time we do a push, we add it over there. So we rarity score num traits, we have to add, and then add it over here as well, rarity score null. So now we've kept track of the total rarity, and we have to save it somewhere. So now it's just every time the loop initializes, it sets total rarity to 0. So at the end of the loop, we have to create something to store the rarity for this NFT. So to have something to store it in, we'll just outside the for loop create something to store it in. So let's create NFT R is an array where we can then just push all the NFTs this for loop creates, and we can push other data as well. Yeah, we don't want to put it in the if statement. We'll put it outside over here. So we push into the NFT array an object with the attributes being what we just created over here. We'll push the rarity, which is the total rarity, which we just incremented, and then the token ID will have to keep tallies of which token this actually is, and we can actually get it from the all NFTs array we get at the very start when calling the Web3 API, get all token IDs. Now we can actually look at what that looks like, NFT R from here, and see what that looks like. And look at that, running node main.js again, we will get an array with all the attributes of the NFT, which will actually have the rarity for specific traits. And then we have the total rarity, which we incremented just now. And then we have the token ID, which we can reference back to later on. Of course, in addition, in this NFT array where we store all the attributes, rarity, and token ID, we could also store a link to the NFT's image, which will be easier to access than when we have all this data in the database. So I'll just add it over here copy and paste. We're simply just going through the initial metadata we get from calling the Web3 API, get all token IDs, or if it's not available in the metadata, we use the token URI to manually fetch it. Actually, we'll need the resolve link function, and I'll just copy and paste that up at the start of here. So now we can use that. And now this will add the image link. So if we do, we need to still push it. So if we do image is equal to all NFTs j.image. And now when we run our script, we should get the image of each NFT as well, which will help us when we actually do the UI. We can easily render the image based on it being within this object. The last missing piece of the puzzle is just ranking all of these NFTs within this new NFTR array. So we need to rank them, and we do that by just sorting the array based on the rarity key. So if we do the NFT array and we sort it based on rarity, now they'll be ordered in the right order. And now it's just a matter of pushing this NFT array to our database. So we loop through the whole NFT array. We add the rank to the NFT objects as they're already sorted. So every time we iterate through the loop, we add the iteration number as the rank to the NFT. We create a new Moralis class called the collection name, which we set at the very start of this script. And then we add a new object with the attributes rarity token ID, all from this NFT array. Then we save, and we of course keep tallies of where we are in the saving or this loop, so we can know when we're finished with saving all of the 10,000 NFTs. So now let's just run this using node main.js again. All right, and that started very quickly. It's already running over here. So we've saved 95 of these NFTs already. And as this is saved, I'll show you what the database looks like. And then we can move on to getting all this data into our dapp and making it look nice. And it seems we completed the NFT Rarity generator, but with only the 500 NFTs we have in the initial call. So as you remember from the start, we have to uncomment this. So now we'll actually go through all the 10,000 NFTs, and our NFT rarity scores will be correct as well. So we save that and now run the same thing. And I'll get back to you when this is done. Now our rarity generator script has finished running. We've looped through all the 10,000 NFTs in the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT collection and push the data of the rarity and the attributes and the images to our Moralis dashboard. So we can open back up our Moralis admin dashboard and look at the rarity generator server we created at the start. Open up the dashboard, and here we have a Bored Ape Yacht Club with 10,000 objects. So we've ranked them from 1 up until 10,000, and each object has a specific token ID with the attributes of said token. So this is what we created in our script, the trait type, what the trait type value is, and then of course the rarity score. And this total rarity score column over here is actually the combined trait rarity scores, giving the NFT its total rarity. And you can see that the rarity is decreasing as the rank increases. Also, of course, we have the image of each token, which will help us nicely render all of these tokens when we put them on the app, which we're actually going to do next. So let's look at what the app code looks like. So here it is. Surprise, surprise, I've just used the Ethereum boilerplate that you can simply find by Googling Ethereum boilerplate. But in the app.jsx file, I've removed all the different tabs that the boilerplate has, just kept that one quick start page that I've changed to homepage. And if we look at that component, I've added all this HTML and ant design to make it look nice and to have all that rarity functionality on the page. So we can go ahead and just run this app so you see what it looks like at the start. So we can write yarn start. And it seems like we have it running somewhere, but we'll just do yes. And that. So now it's running over here, Rarity Ranker, but we don't have any collections to choose, and we can't search for a token because there's no collections to be chosen from. So what we have to do is set the options for the set collection tab. So like I said, all of this code, it will be in the link description if you want to play for it yourself, but we go over here to the select component we've used antisign for, and your options go here. So what we'll have to do is create an option, give it a value that is equal to the class name we have in the Moralis dashboard. So this is very important. So we have to have Bored Ape Yacht Club, and then we can have as the option actually whatever we want. So we can have actually spaces here if we would like, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and then we close the option like so. Now, saving that, and we go back to the Rarity Ranker, we can refresh this page, and now we have Bored Ape Yacht Club as a choice, and boom, our NFTs are sorted in rarity order. We can even load some more NFTs. Look at that, very cool. So that's basically it. Now we have a rarity generator tool that you can put any NFT collection's address in, as long as the metadata of that collection consists of the trait types, which is best practices. So most NFTs collections will have that. And then you have this app that it's linked down in the description. Like I've said many times, you feel free to modify it as you like, add it to an NFT marketplace or whatever, just get building. But before I leave you, let's just check how our rarity ranking matches to one of the leading rarity rankers on the web currently, so Rarity.tools. So let's open up our rarity ranker and Rarity.tools side by side and see how we link up. All right, here we have our rarity ranker and Rarity.tools for the Bored Ape Yacht Club side by side. First of all, we see that we have a lot of similar NFTs in our top rankings, but they don't match exactly. Let's see why. So if we open up Bored Ape Yacht Club 8976, for example, we see all these attributes and the amount of times they occur and the rarity score we get for them. Let's open the same thing for Rarity.tools, and we see that for the mouth, we get a rarity score of 384, mouth 384 in our rarity ranking. Same thing, clothes 70.9, clothes for us 70.9. So we're getting the same results. The only thing that is different is the trait count. So we have the same trait count, which is 7. We have the amount, the trait count number 7 occurs is 1,883 in both. But in Rarity.tools, they give a rarity score of 42, as we only give 5. So what is happening is that Rarity.tools have decided that the trait count attribute actually has a higher weighting than all of these other attributes. Actually, a higher weighting by a factor of 8. So this makes a massive difference, but you can do the exact same thing. If you feel like in your NFT collection rarities, you want to weight more the eyes or the fur or whatever NFT collection it is, you can do that. But use your own judgment and the NFT collection creators' judgment to provide these weightings. But let me show you how we could simply modify our rarity generation tool to match that of Rarity.tools. So we've headed back to our rarity generator tool, main.js file, and let's just change the collection name to Bored Ape Yacht Club 2. So we have 2 distinct collections we can refer to. And now we go back down all the way to where we calculate rarity score number of traits over here. So all we have to do is provide a multiplier for this rarity score num traits. So if we put all of that inside brackets and multiply it by 8, now our rarity score num traits will have a higher weighting by a factor of 8 than all the other rarity scores within the attributes of this NFT collection. We save that, and then if we just run that again, node main.js, and now we just let that run. It will save a new class in our Moralis server called Bored Ape Yacht Club 2, and we can refer to that in our app. So let's do that. So now back in our app, we go to our component where we have the selected options, and we can add another option with this new class we created, which has slightly different values. We can call it Bored Ape Yacht Club 2, which we called it. And for the name, we'll just call it vol2. And now saving that and going to the app. Now in the app, if we refresh and select the collections, now we have these two collections. Bored Ape Yacht Club Volume 2 is what we're looking for. And look at that. The order has changed. We have a different set of values. Let's just check this one. Bored Ape Yacht Club 8976. The trait count is still 1,883 for 7 traits, but the rarity score is 42.5, effectively increasing the total rarity score and making our rarity ranking the same as if it was Rarity.tools. So we've actually duplicated the Rarity.tools Volume 1 rarity matrix. So I really hope you enjoyed this video on how to calculate rarity for a generatively created NFT art collection. And I hope you put this to good use. As I said, the links are all in the description below for you to play around with. And if you celebrate Christmas, have a very, very Merry Christmas. And if you don't, just have a very, very nice end of the year. And keep building. I'll see you in the next one.